After riding the KTM 1290 Superduke R, how does it compare to the Ducati StreetFighter V4s? So, I actually want to break down the pros and cons. Now, the pros aren't strictly KTM, it's more of which one I liked better in different regards. So, we'll start with the riding experience. I actually prefer the KTM's vibrations and visceral sounds and feel that it gives you, whereas the Ducati is a little more subdued. Even though it's still a monster, especially with the Acropovic exhaust, it doesn't vibrate quite the same. It's more of a refined, relaxed feel. So pro point KTM. What else does KTM have? Well, oddly enough, it has cruise control. This is a 2018 and it has cruise control. This Ducati does not. Why they don't have cruise control is beyond me. So, KTM, point. The torque. The KTM has more torque than the Ducati and is felt as you exit turns. But the way the Ducati actually feels entry, exit, and mid-corner is honestly a good bit better and more planted than the KTM. And for that, I like the way the Ducati feels in that regard. I've also ridden this on the track, so it's kind of not quite apples to apples. If I get this on track, maybe we'll see. The dash, the display, well, that is definitely very pedestrian and simple. The Ducati is very nicely laid out as well, and it honestly feels more modern and more up to date. Granted, this is a 4-year-old bike compared to 2021, so is that fair? Not quite, but KTM usually doesn't go crazy with their dashes, whereas Ducati, they definitely keep that up to date, so point to Ducati for that. We did this very scientific method to determine the wheelbase between these two bikes, and for that we used Crow Arizona's feet, and we found those things were 5.5 from wheel to wheel on both bikes. So according to Crow's feet, they're the same. So we talk about suspension a little bit. It's Öhlins, and it's the electronic Öhlins suspension. I don't know that that's quite a fair fight. I will say that the WP is a solid suspension feel. Like, again, it's felt planted. It didn't squat too much. It wasn't too harsh of a ride. Whereas the Öhlins is just another level where everything kind of feels a little better dialed in, even the electronic side of it. So for that, the suspension wise, I go with Ducati. For ergonomics, the way you sit on it and feel, honestly, they're very similar. I think the Ducati is slightly more upright, which might be a little bit more comfortable, but I think between the two, they have a good real estate for your legs and a good real estate stretched to the handlebars. So I think in that regard, they're very even. I think they're about, so I can't really give them a point. They're the same to me. The electronics, I think the Ducati is a little more refined as far as their electronic suite that they have on it. It does a little bit more, and it comes as a package to the bike, whereas the KTM, you have to buy it. There's some pros and cons to being able to buy something and add on as opposed to being already there. All right, so the incredibly subjective part of this comparison, the styling and the looks of it. I think the Ducati looks better. The front end's more mean, more streamlined looking. The winglets are kind of ridiculous, but add to that anger. The front end of the KTM looks like the ant from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So you kind of have that. The trellis frame's kind of cool, it's minimalistic, but I think overall, the Ducati wins. The aesthetics of it, again, the back end looks better on the Ducati. And the exhaust, when you get that full Acropovic exhaust on the StreetFighter, it's like a beautiful titanium work of art, whereas the KTM, it's two pipes that come out and then meet, and then that's kind of all it is. So to me, aesthetically, Ducati wins hands down. Granted, the KTM is a unique looking machine as well, so it's very subjective. Me personally, I like Ducati. I'm a little Ducati bias, so there you go. Single-sided swing arm, Ducati wins until you remove that thing. And then once you remove that giant canister, it's fine. But you know, overall, the naked bikes have gone so crazy that they're so good that they rival the super bikes that they really are derived from and I freaking love it. They're so much fun, they're comfortable, and they just really give you a different riding experience that, you know, you don't normally get unless you either have a slower, more upright touring bike, or you have the hardcore sport bike, and these things being that beautiful mix in between. I dig them. Something that I want to point out that I think the KTM is a little bit nicer in than Ducati is, I'm not sure what the weight is of the KTM, but when you ride it, it feels more nimble. It's more narrow, kind of like my 11 to 1299 where I really like the narrowness. This has that. This, not so much. You feel the heft, it feels wide. But I tell you what, this thing handles, flicks. So overall, which bike do I like better? It's actually a toss-up. I like them for two different reasons. If you're looking for that bike that gives you that excitement, the KTM is exactly it and is a solid machine. If you want a little bit more refinement, you want a little bit more upgrade electronics and a little bit different as far as beefiness feel, the Ducati is the way to go. Honestly, I'd like to have them both in my garage. But with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this quick comparison between the two bikes. They're both amazing. And with that, you all have a good one. I'm out.